Welcome everyone to the May 8th, 2019 meeting of the Rotterdam Town Board. At approximately 5:35 p.m. we began our agenda review. At approximately 6:02 p.m. With a motion by Mr. Christou and a second by Mr. Signor, all voting in favor to enter executive session on the topics that you see there. In addition, we had a conversation with the legal counsel from CSEA regarding collective bargaining issues, or matters, I should say matters. At approximately 6:59 p.m., we exited executive session with a motion by Mr. Christou and a second by Mr. Signor, all voting in the affirmative to exit executive session. And at approximately 7:05 p.m., we exited our agenda review with a motion by Mr. Guidarelli and a second by Mr. Christou, voting in the affirmative to do so. So, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Present.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Present.
Mrs. Miller-Rivera? Present. Mr. Signor?
Present.
Mr. Tomazoni?
Present.
5 present.
Could you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ms. Marco, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, under Supervisor's report, I just want to make mention of something for this is more for myself than for anyone else, really, just to give an explanation. Last week, one of the things with our board, we all have full-time jobs, and also are honored and privileged to serve on the town board. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, I had a work event that I had to attend downstate, and so I couldn't be here for the meeting. I apologize for that. And one of the things that was on the agenda was a Catholic Charities contract. I did hand out the draft to the board this evening, and without going into the details of why it was late, outside of that was our town attorney was working on it, and we just didn't have enough time to get it finalized. The draft was not 100% ready as a draft. So the board did, though, give us the authority to do so, but I did hand it out to the board this evening. If someone wants a copy of that draft later on, I'd be happy to give it to them after the meeting. Really, in the big scheme of things, these resolutions, when we pass them, so I'll give you an example. One of the resolutions that's on the agenda this evening is regarding a copier for the supervisor's office. That the one that we had there, and I forget the exact number, but say it was $290 a month for a lease. This one's $270 a month for a lease. The per page cost on this one is less than the other one, and the new one that we have is much better. But I had to make a decision to get that done before we even had the resolution here. It has nothing to do with who the vendor is or anything like that. Everything that we have is on state contract. We have a resolution tonight authorizing or basically saying that the board agrees with my decision. Now, when it comes to anything that's contractual, if the board hasn't seen it yet, if there's something where we're having a resolution that basically gives me the authority to negotiate or enter a contract, I will not do it until they see it, so that everyone understands that. In my prior service on this board as supervisor, I want you all to know that I had board members, and none of these board members do this, so that you understand where I'm going with this. That I had prior board members that were telling me that they were going to pass resolutions in order to enter contracts or ask me to negotiate contracts with different entities, and that I had to do so. And I said, what's the benefit for the town? What do we get out of it for the public? If you can't answer that question for me, then I don't do it, period. So I can't tell you how those meetings really went because some of the language that was used was inappropriate. But I can tell you this, they never invited me to the caucuses after that, so that you understand what I'm saying. Because I don't play that game. It's very important to me. I understand my role. Every board member here understands their role. We are all in different political parties as our main enrollment, but the one thing that we all are residents of our town. We're all taxpayers here. We work here, we live here, we care about our community. We have differences of opinion on different matters, but none of us have ever raised our voices to each other. We don't do things behind closed doors. We do everything that we can to ensure that what we're doing here, in order for us to be responsible and accountable to the public, that's what we're doing. And really, I don't know what else to say to that. Outside of that, I did take some other notes, but I think that I'm through with that topic. But I would appreciate it if you would, if anyone wants a copy of it's a draft. You can have it after the meeting. I'd be happy to make you a copy. But what we're trying to do here with that contract is basically a stopgap, if you will, to some degree, and potentially a longer-term contract if this works out. I think I'll mention this too. So late in March, our town attorney, Ms. McGurl, and I both went to Catholic Charities. We volunteered time. My company gave me time, 4 hours off. And so Ms. McGurl went with a young lady. I went with a young gentleman. We delivered Meals on Wheels here within our community and to some of the city of Schenectady as well. And as I said a little earlier to the rest of the board members, a very eye-opening experience. Now, we all know that there are people who struggle. And one of the biggest things for me was knowing that, and I worked in retail banking. I've worked in this area for a long time. I know a lot of people, and I know a lot of families, and I know some of the things that people have to go through. So don't misinterpret what I'm saying here in any way, other than to say that we have a lot of people in need in the town, and it's every community has that. So anyway, the Catholic Charities will, provide meals at the senior center in the near future, here in the near term, I should say, and without going into the expense side and what we had there before and other things, for now, it will help provide a service that people need. And we will be working with Catholic Charities to find out what they've done in other communities to make them successful, to get the word out. I already know one of the things we can do here to do that, whether it's a postcard, a mail, or something. We'll do something to make sure people know that the service is available at the senior center. And that's all we're here to do. We're here to provide for our community. So that's that. I think I've got said enough for this evening. So let's open up to our public hearings this evening. Public hearing 1, please.
To allow for Mahonison School District to include their new transportation facility that replaced the old transportation facility on Helderberg Avenue, plus or minus 27,175 square foot, and to add new academic building, Mahonison Center for Advanced Technology, that combines school and vocational functions, plus or minus 55,215 square foot, to the Town of Rotterdam Sewer District Number 2, extension number 15. There's nobody that signed.
No one listed. Okay. But anyone else? Anyone? If case came in late, anyone want to be heard on public hearing 1 this evening? Anyone want to be heard on public hearing 1 this evening? Anyone like to be heard on public hearing 1 this evening? Okay, we'll declare public hearing 1 closed. Okay, Ms. Marco, public hearing 2, please.
To allow for an amendment to the Code of the Town of Rotterdam, Chapter 60, Residency Requirements, Section 60-4, Failure to Comply, and to add Article 6, Board of Residency, 60-9, Board of Residency.
Okay. Again, anyone want to be heard on public hearing 2 this evening? Anyone want to be heard on public hearing 2 this evening? Anyone like to be heard on public hearing 2 this evening? No? Okay, we'll declare public hearing 2 closed at this time. Public hearing 3, please.
To allow for an amendment to the Code of the Town of Rotterdam, Chapter 154, Housing and Building Standards, Section 154-3, Code Enforcement Officer, Section 154-4, Powers and Duties of Officer, and Section 154-7, Restrictions on Officers. And there's nobody that signed up.
Okay. Anyone like to be heard on public hearing 3 this evening? Anyone like to be heard on public hearing 3 this evening? Anyone like to be heard on public hearing 3? No? Okay. We'll declare public hearing 3 closed as well. Now we'll enter public comment privilege of the floor. Ms. Marco, do we have?
Yes. Jack Dotson.
Good evening, Jack Dotson, 1311 Cipriana Terrace. Just a couple things. First one regarding, let's see, Resolution 14119. Appreciate the consideration on this resolution. Definitely think it was the correct decision to make. Other than that, just some general comments from the public relative to the recent water main break on Princetown Road, and just some general questions. First and foremost, town, phenomenal job again, yeoman's job there to take care of a very large diameter water main and the repair. As you guys saw, there's a lot of water that could come out of a 24-inch water main. Given that, I guess a couple questions came up, and again, I believe it's been several months now, but I know the town did approve an engineering study to evaluate water main breaks in the town. At some point in time, I guess we're just looking for if that's been completed or when that may be available. Two would be, I know that the town is required to have an emergency plan, and probably does have one with the state health department relative to providing public water. But in light of that, there was several comments made, social media again, relative to what is the town's plan for providing water. You know, I've been involved in a few communities that have had emergencies, and I know SEMO is very good about providing water buffaloes or water. Does the town have any contract even with Golub? How fortunate we have Golub here, where we have the ability to make a phone call and have a tractor trailer load of water at town hall within a given period of time. So that's just one of my general questions. In addition to that, my other one is really just a suggestion, and I've talked to you guys a little bit about this before, is the technology out there is phenomenal now relative to GPS and GIS systems and locating what I call as the critical infrastructure. Here in this case, it would be transmission, your backbone mains. It saves a tremendous amount of time and property damage when the town has the ability to locate bell boxes that might be 12 inches under the pavement, okay? So rather than having to run around looking for things, there is very detailed location equipment that would help us out. That's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Kelly Weatherspoon?
Hello, Kelly Weatherspoon, Main Street, Rotterdam Junction. I'm here over the solar panels that are supposed to go behind my bar on the aquifer, the water, the place that I thought we were very, very, very protected of. And nowhere else in Rotterdam do I see where anyone else is looking at solar panels in their backyard. I understand they do in Pattersonville, but they sold that land so they could look at that. So now I have a junkyard on one side of me, and now I have solar panels behind me. This is my livelihood. This is my place of business. And Putnam Street now is going to have solar panels in their backyard. And I'm not understanding how you could even justify, we're not a farm town, we're not a hilltop, we're nowhere, that these belong in a small town like this. And then I thought we had great news that Bobby's Auto was coming down, but no more to find out then it's going to be a right-of-way for these sites. It's not going to be a right-of-way. It's okay. And then now I have all these stakes up and down my property. I own this property. No one's told me why they put the stakes in the ground, why they're there. I maintain this property, and yet no one came in to me and said, this is what the stakes are for, and this is what's going on. So, I mean, obviously I cannot mow this piece of property now that I have been mowing for 50 years in the family. So I just don't think Rotterdam Junction is a place to have solar panels. We have people living in this town. It's not it's not a farm place. So I'm just very against where they're going to put it. There's not enough information of what's going to happen in this grounds of these solar panels. We don't know enough about them yet. What's going to happen in 30 years? This is my livelihood, that come have a party, you can look at solar panels and a junkyard. Because my whole backyard is a patio of which I host parties. And again, why are these stakes up and down my property? No one came in and asked me or said, or anything, and it is my property. And lastly, I don't need to hear anything back. I wish you would do something for these seniors. These poor seniors have been waiting for this building for I can't tell you how long. It doesn't take this long to put a building in. I watch people build brand new building in days. And they come in here in their little walkers begging for a place to go. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, I can respond a little bit to both. I'll do that at the end if that's okay, so we can get through the agenda and let you give you some information on the stakes. I just stated in brief. I have no idea why the stakes are there outside of. I know that we are doing. There is a process happening right now to take that building down, and that
Yeah,
can
but
have
that's my
something.
property across the street.
I don't know. I don't know. Is it lines? Is it water lines? I don't know what's there, Kelly. I don't know. I'll find out. I'll get back to you on that.
I thought somebody should at least ask, here's your property, can I put the stakes in?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
No one does.
I don't. Like I said, I don't color stakes there. I don't know what the markings are. So we'll find out for you. We'll get that to you. Okay. Anyone else under public comment? Privilege of the floor. All right. So we'll move on to resolutions. Resolution 13419.
Adopt the meeting minutes from the April 24th, 2019 town board meeting.
I'll move.
Okay, motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Mr. Signor. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Mark, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Present.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 13419 passes. Resolution 13519.
Appoint individuals to various seasonal summer positions at the Town of Rotterdam Parks Department from May 28th, 2019 through August 16th, 2019 at an hourly rate of $11.10.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Guidarelli. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Mark, call the roll, please.
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 13519 passes. Resolution 13619.
Appoint and reappoint individuals to seasonal positions in the Parks and Recreation Summer Program effective June 5th, 2019.
Okay, motion, please.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Signor. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Mark, call the roll, please.
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution 13619 passes. Resolution 13719.
Amend resolution number 103.19 to appoint individuals to various seasonal and/or part-time positions at the indicated rates of pay for the year 2019.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Guidarelli. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Mark, call the roll, please.
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 13819 passes, or sorry, 13719 passes. Resolution 13819.
Call for a public hearing to be held on Wednesday, May 22nd, 2019 at 7 p.m. at the Rotterdam Junction Volunteer Fire Department, 1215 Main Street, Rotterdam Junction, New York, 12150 for the following purpose. Request by Primax Properties LLC, Dollar General, as contract vendee to discuss the allowance to construct a plus or minus 9,300 square foot retail building on a proposed plus or minus 42,226 square foot parcel located in the Aquifer Overlay District on tax map number 20.5-8-1.12 vacant and tax map number 20.5-8-3 existing commercial building 1217 to 1225 Main Street in Rotterdam Junction, New York 12150. Applicant is requesting to boundary line adjust plus or minus 11,249 square feet or property from 1217 to 1221 Main Street containing an existing plus or minus 13,000 square foot retail commercial building to facilitate the construction of the new plus or minus 9,300 square foot building.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Signor again. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Mark, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Tomaso?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 13819 passes. Resolution 13919.
Call for a public hearing to be held on Wednesday, May 22nd, 2019 at 7 p.m. at the Rotterdam Junction Volunteer Fire Department, 1215 Main Street, Rotterdam Junction, New York, 12150, upon adoption of a proposed local law of the year 2019 for the following purpose: to amend Chapter 112, Section 5, the Code of the Town of Rotterdam entitled Authorization of Inspectors to include Commonwealth Electrical Inspection Service Incorporated.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Signor. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Christou. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Mark, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Tomaso?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 13919 passes. Resolution 14019.
Authorize the supervisor to enter an agreement with the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services, 80 South Swan Street, Albany, New York, 12210, for access to the criminal records database.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Guidarelli. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Mark, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Tomaso?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 14019 passes. Resolution 14119.
Authorize the supervisor to enter an agreement with Chazen Companies, 547 River Street, Troy, New York, 12180, to provide a topographic survey of the 5 locations requiring pavement repairs, specifications for paving bidding documents, and monitoring paving in an amount not to exceed $50,225.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Guidarelli. Anyone on the question?
Mr. Supervisor, since Mr. Lanero from Chazen is here, perhaps we could have him come up to the podium and tell us some of the scope, what this scope of work entails.
Yeah, just give us a brief, Joe, if that's okay. Please, thanks.
Good evening. So in a brief overview, what we're planning on doing is addressing 5 locations in the town of Rotterdam. 4 would be located in New York State DOT right-of-ways. 1 would be located in a town right-of-way. What we would be doing is completing surveys of select areas where water line repairs have been made in the past, and with the intent on doing some pavement removal and restoration that would be consistent with the DOT requirements for the work in the right-of-way, and then some additional miscellaneous work in the town right-of-way. Work would include surveying, design, specification, and preparation of bid documents to publicly bid the work, so all 5 areas could be addressed by one contractor. We would administer a construction contract and provide full-time inspection of the work that would be done in the town right-of-way as well as in the DOT right-of-way. And as part of that process, we would be reviewing and approving payment applications for the town's consideration once the work has been completed.
Anyone else?
So basically, it's not just saying these need to be repaired. There's infrastructure issues, things might have to be shored up and everything, and you're going to create all those details. You'll make those analyses, and we're going to make sure that we meet DOT requirements, and we'll have a detailed bid spec that we can put out to bid that will allow us to get the best possible price because of that detail that's entailed.
Exactly. DOT will require DOT work permits for the 4 areas within the right-of-way. So we'll prepare those plans. It'll include plans and sections and details referencing DOT standard specifications. It will also include a protection of traffic and safety plan that would be administered by town highway personnel for maintaining the traffic during construction, so it'd be a savings to the town to not have the contractor do that. We can include an ad alternate if we want to have the contractor provide the flagging and protection of safety equipment, just so there could be a decision made at that time. But it will be submitted to DOT, so they'll review it and approve it, and as part of their approval, we'll get a permit to work in the right-of-way, and that'll ensure they'll be satisfied with the end product.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, anyone else on 14119? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomaso?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 14119 passes. Resolution 14219.
Authorize the supervisor to accept the 2019-2020 Schenectady County Initiative Program CIP grant in the amount of $1,500 for the summer concert series held at the Rotterdam Senior Citizen Center located at 2639 Hamburg Street, Schenectady, New York, 12303.
May I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Signor. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomaso?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution 14219 passes. Resolution 14319.
Authorize the supervisor to enter into a lease agreement with DeLag Landon Financial Services Incorporated, 1111 Old Eagle School Road, Wayne, Pennsylvania, 19087-8608 at a monthly rate of $269 and a per copy rate of $0.006 for 48 months, commencing retroactive to May 1st, 2019.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by, which one of you seconded?
Joe,
Mr. Signor? Okay,
Sure.
all right. I don't know, I can't.
so it's Christo and Signor?
Christou and Signor.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomaso?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 14319 passes. Resolution 14419.
Authorize the BB Law Firm to enter into a stipulation of settlement on behalf of the Town of Rotterdam in the matter of capital living rehabilitation versus Town of Rotterdam, ETAL, index numbers 2013-1372, 2014-1335, 2015-1584, 2016-1509, and 2017-1477. Article 7 of the Real Property Tax Certiorari proceedings for the tax years 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017.
Okay, motion, please.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Gitterelli. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Mr. Christou. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution 14419 passes. Resolution 14519.
Authorize BB Law Firm to enter into a stipulation of settlement on behalf of the Town of Rotterdam in the matter of Robert Gilbert versus Town of Rotterdam, ETAL, index number 2016-1764.
Okay, motion, please.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. A second, please.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gitterelli. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Marco, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, resolution 14519 passes. Resolution 14619.
Issue invitation to bid by CT Mail for repairs at the Rotterdam Senior Center. Bids will be open on Wednesday, June 5th, 2019 at 2 p.m. at the John F. Kirby Government Center, 1100 Sunrise Boulevard, Rotterdam, New York, 12306.
Can we have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gitterelli. Anyone on the question? So just on the question here, just to address a little bit about what you mentioned regarding the senior center. It's an old building. It's a couple buildings put together. It's taken a lot of time for them to assess the extent of the damage. The electrical and plumbing systems that are in there are old. It's mechanical systems. So now we have the bid specs are drawn up. They are going out to bid. Work will be completed. Majority of it, if not all of it, majority of it this year. So we are moving in that direction. And it also had to do with the flooding that happened. The insurance recovery took some time. We had to go back and forth with the insurance company and with CT Mail and with our own folks here, back and forth with them to ensure that we were getting what was due to us and money still outstanding. So we're working towards it. Now the bid spec will go out and hopefully we'll get some good bids in next month and start the work.
I hope so. For
Yeah,
that.
me too. So, Ms. Marco, Resolution 14619, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution 14619 passes. So now we have consent items, 147 through 14919. Could I have a motion, please?
Mr. Supervisor, I would like to make a motion to approve consent items 14719, 14819, and 14919.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Gitterelli. Okay, anyone on the questions here? Resolutions? Ms. Mark, would you call the roll for 147, 148, and 14919, please?
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mr. Gitterelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, so resolutions 147, 148, and 14919 pass. Okay, let's go to committee reports. I know that a couple of you have some announcements to make, so please go right ahead.
Well, I'll start off with the Parks Committee. Just wanted to say that the park cleanup that we had on April 27th at the Kiwanis Boat Launch, while cold, rainy, was a success, and I think the park cleanup went very well. Want to give a big shout out to the students who showed up to help out. Some of them I think were doing community service. And to the other people who showed up, thank you very much. And again, I think the schools that did show and participate did an outstanding job. I want to thank them very much and everyone else, and look forward to doing it again next year. Want to go on with the Battle of the Badges?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay, well, here it is. Battle of the Badges once again. It's going to be on May 11th at 11 o'clock. Rain date May 18th at 11, and it's going to be at the Babe Ruth Memorial Park. And it's this Saturday, so hopefully the weather will cooperate, and we'll see everybody there. And the next thing we have is, let's see, we've got the, remind people that we have the Memorial Day Parade, which will be Thursday, May 23rd, starting at 6:30. And then remind people that on Monday, Memorial Day, May 27th at 2 p.m., we're going to have our Memorial Day service, which the town does every year.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Supervisor, last weekend we had the Senior Citizens Prom, the annual Senior Citizen Proms at Draper Middle School. I know Town Clerk Ms. Marco was there, Councilman Gitterelli was there. Were you there?
No.
Okay. Anyway, whoever did attend, I think it's worth mentioning, and I think Diane, you'll agree, and Joe, these kids did an outstanding job. It was the 25th anniversary. It was a Sinatra theme. The room was decorated absolutely beautifully. There's a lot of work. They invited alumni from Mohanison who had been program coordinators for this in the past. You know, our seniors are very valuable to us. And whether you're talking senior living or anything else to do with seniors, one of the healthiest things for our senior community is for them to engage with younger people. And this is a great example of that. I'd also like to address some of the things that were spoken to under privilege of the floor. Yes, we want to provide anything we can for the seniors. In going back through the chronology of the senior center and making the repairs, Senator Amador was able to secure a $300,000 grant to bring our senior center up to code, making it a certified shelter. Now, unfortunately, when a government official promises you a grant, it's not like he pulls out his checkbook and hands you a check. There's agencies. In this case, it was the Dormitory Authority. Upon our election, we contacted the Dormitory Authority, and they basically said, well, you can put that on the back burner. We're not even going to look at it until next year. And then, as we were moving forward with that, we had this flood situation here. And all I can say is, thank God we did not spend the senator's money before that disaster that happened. So now you had this horrible, horrible flood, which pretty much gutted a good portion of the senior center. So we engaged with CT Mail to go in and look at the place soup to nuts. The electrical, the plumbing. Now you have insurance companies involved. What they want to pay you, then, you know, what we've identified. An original figure was given. Thank God we had CT Mail there who discovered things that weren't discovered by our own people or by the adjusters, as in from their position. So that was put into the mix as well, and we were able to secure, the funding that we needed for that. Keep in mind that the safety and well-being of our seniors are very important, and a portion of that building is also leased out to a children's daycare center. So safety, proper code enforcement, and everything else must be done properly. Hence, finally, that we have the bid specs, and I think, as some engineers in this room will attest, the more detailed the spec, the better price you can usually secure when you're looking for something. So yes, it's been a long time waiting. Unfortunately, when you're dealing with government agencies, things do not happen as quickly as they do in the private sector, but it doesn't mean that we still can't do it right. So kudos to CTML for finally getting this done, and kudos to the children at Dapper Middle School and Mahonison High School for doing such a great job with that senior citizens ball. As far as the water main breaks, I believe we do the GPS and GIS stuff now, correct, Mr. Supervisor?
They're marking where hydrants
And
are.
in speaking with Matt Lupi and during the water main break, the issue was not identifying or having to run around to identify things. It was one valve that they discovered was broken. So they had to shut off all these surrounding valves to be able to isolate that broken valve in order to make the repair. That was something that I discovered during the water main break.
There's that, and the infrastructure that we have in different parts of the town as far as the water infrastructure, it's obviously different from place to place. What I mean by that is the age of the pipes and the valves and so on. There are sections of the town where there are, when they built them, there are only a few valves. So what happens is when you have a break on a street or you have a break somewhere, you have to end up shutting down the entire street rather than just a section of the street. That is a problem, something that we will address in the future in some of these areas. But for those of you that recall, a couple of years ago or so, we did apply for a large grant. We did receive the grant and low interest loans, a $5 million award from the state. They are in the final stages now of going through with the environmental conservation at the Department of Health and probably one or two other state agencies of developing the plans that we need to run. Part of that grant had to do with running a redundant line or a new line, if you will, up to Five Corners from Rice Road, from the water plant, because that is the oldest line. That's one of the reasons why that line is in the condition it's in when it broke there. That same section has broken before. So what happens with water pipe is that the minute you start repairing one section and turning off the valves and changing the pressure and everything else, things will change, and it compromises things. It compromises the pipe. So and the valves. There are some valves along that line that we discovered, and we knew about one, I think, prior to that I'm aware of, that did not function. That's all part of the planning for replacing, or if you will, creating a redundancy there on that line. As far as emergency planning, one of the things that and I know I mentioned this in the past, so I apologize if your eyes glaze over here on the board a little bit, but in the past there was a cross connection, if you will, or interconnection, I think is the right term, right, with the city of Schenectady on Crane Street. From what I'm told, about 40 years ago, for whatever reason, they cut the valves out in that interconnection with the city and removed it. I think they needed. I was told they needed the valves somewhere else at that time, so they took them out.
This is the city.
No, us. Oh, not the city. We own those valves. So anyhow, regardless, when it comes to planning and ensuring that we loop the water, if you will, that we have a system that can have redundancy. Just so that you know, we did put in we have a connection now with the town of Gilman on Gilman Avenue, going out, 158. There is an interconnection there with Gilman. We had just received the final approval, I believe, on the one for Hamburg Street to connect to the city of Schenectady there. And as we have other projects coming into the town when it comes to water infrastructure in particular, know that we are on top of it, know that we are ensuring that the projects that we are approving not only have proper valves and so on, but that we are doing everything that we can to loop the system from one part of town to the other. So if there is a break on Princetown Road, or there's a break on Hamburg Street, there's a break on one of the main trunk lines, that we are able to loop and basically shut down a section, and that the rest of the town will have water. When it comes to the junction, for those of you who live in the junction, you know that that's a separate system. It's on its own. There's a tremendous, it's an old system. We do have a new water tank there, a newer water tank, about 10 years old. There's a lot more work to be done there. But the state does have a requirement that basically in the grant process that you have to wait a particular amount of time before you can apply for another grant having to do with water. So received that award, but we are working. When I say working, we've had inquiries from the town of Florida, Montgomery County, to potentially provide water there. So, you know, there are things that we've talked about. There's nothing that is when I say in the works, there's no contracts, nothing going on yet. But understand that from my perspective, and I'll speak for myself, we have a tremendous resource with our water. We are extremely blessed and fortunate. And where we can ensure that not only that we provide high quality water for our citizens, that we have an ability then also to look at other municipalities that are close by us. And it's not about revenue as much as it is about ensuring the future, to ensure that those people within those districts will always have water, and that whatever revenue we may be able to derive from selling, quote unquote selling, or providing water to other neighboring communities, that will then be used to rehabilitate or improve the existing infrastructure that needs improvement long term. That's where we're going. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to continue down that path for the next several years. And it's very important. We all know that. And I can tell you that in the past when I served, we were looking at a couple of these interconnections, and it's no one's, it's not a fault or blame game here. It's just that people have different priorities sometimes in government. And I can tell you, seeing what happens in some of these other municipalities when they do have a main break on one line, guess what? The entire community shut down because they don't have valves where they need them. They have one system, one water tower, water tank, and that's it. There's no duplication, no redundancy. We have the redundancy here, and we're building more of it so that we will hopefully, when a break like on Princetown Road happens, as what they did, they isolated it. There were only a few streets that were really affected. And as I said, and I'll say this jokingly, when my mother calls me and says she doesn't have water, I understand. In other words, what I'm getting at with you is that it's not just my mom that calls me. A lot of people call me. I don't go on social media. I'm not on social media, except for a static page, which is a whole other issue. But I'm not on social media. I believe very strongly that we have people that know what they're doing, and our town will get information out to residents through our website and through the reverse 911, if you will. You can sign up for that. That's on our website. It's also on the police department's website. So when you're looking for information, we put information out that way. And I can assure you that if we were going to be without water for an extended period of time, we would take on some other emergency procedures, whether it's with the Gold Corporation or anyone else that would assist us at that time. But we're not in any danger with that break. That was not an issue. But if there ever is a larger issue, I can assure you we will look at that.
And also just add to that, Mr. Supervisor, if you recall, when we met with the mayor in the fall of last year, we also discussed about revitalizing that connection on Crane Street.
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
But and it also comes down to the water modeling, though. And so with the connection we have on Hamburg Street, we may look at that one, or we may look at it. Maybe one down Altamont Avenue. So somewhere we'll find another an appropriate.
To complete the loop.
Yeah, but we're already in it. Okay. Anybody else with committee reports?
If I could just piggyback a little bit on what was said, and then I have one more item to add. As I understand it now, the highway department is actually mapping the catch basins. They've got the GPS system. In fact, I think they're even obligated now to actually map them and provide the data to the state. So each time that they're going out, then cleaning them, they're mapping them with the GPS and recording that they've been cleaned, and then basically going around and doing it again. So we are moving forward into more technology. Also, the machine that we bought to massage these valves, that has a GPS capability to map these valves. So they're probably going to be going around and systematically locating these valves if they have to do routine massaging. Okay, they have been doing that. So we're on that. We're definitely trying to bring us into the 21st century. So I wanted to add or piggyback on what was said earlier. Also, I forgot lastly to remind people that the Tri-County Rotterdam Challenger Baseball League will have its opening day on Sunday, May 19th at 1 p.m. And that will be at the Westina Field, 19 Putnam Street, Rotterdam Junction. Hope to see you there.
Okay. Anyone else for committee reports? We'll go to miscellaneous then. And we have representatives from Chazen Engineering here tonight. It's a public informational meeting regarding Sewer District 7, Extension 2, Carmen Road. So, gentlemen, would you come up and... Oh, you want to use the PowerPoint, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll come around the other side. That's better, right? Is that okay?
Good evening, everyone. So tonight, we would like to have a public workshop and like to keep this somewhat informal, although we do have a PowerPoint presentation to review some information with the board and the public regarding the Sewer District number 7, extension number 2 on Carmen Road. I believe the town sent letters to the property owners that would be in a proposed sewer district so they could participate in this public workshop, and there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers upon completion of our presentation. So our office has been working with the town for a number of years, and we recently completed a sewer district project for the town on Hamburg Street, forming the initial sewer district number 7 and infrastructure for the Hamburg Street corridor. That project was advanced as a betterment with the New York State DOT's work for improving the Hamburg Street corridor. That project was recently completed, and while we were completing that project, we were getting a number of inquiries from additional residents beyond the area being serviced for access to sewer. One of the things we've found in this corridor, extending up Hamburg Street and along Carmen, as well as Curry Road, east and west of the intersection, is that there's a demand for sewer infrastructure. Many of the properties in that area rely on on-site soil-based wastewater management systems or septic systems. Many of those parcels have been developed for many years. They're smaller parcels. The systems are aging. There's been a number of reported system failures. And in the main corridor along Carmen Road in particular, there's also been some additional inquiries regarding expansion of developments that exist within that corridor. So currently, we have access now to public infrastructure on Hamburg Street. The sanitary sewer system drains to a pump station on 4th Street, which then discharges the sewage into the City of Schenectady system. The system itself has a capacity that is currently operating at about 200 gallons per minute. However, the pump station was designed to have its capacity increased to a maximum of 500 gallons per minute, which is the maximum receiving capacity of the force main under the railroad tracks that discharge into the city system. Right now, the Hamburg Street District has an estimated average daily demand of about 37,000 gallons a day, and it has a peak flow of about 136 gallons per minute. So there's some additional capacity in that 200 gallons per minute that exists on 4th Street as we speak. This is just a simple map to help the audience understand the current service area of the Hamburg Street corridor. It essentially starts at the roundabout where Carmen, Curry, and Hamburg meet, and advances north on Hamburg Street to the railroad tracks. All of those properties funding on Hamburg Street are included in the existing sewer district. The town board approved the first extension of that sewer district, which is the Western Pines development. That project is proposed to collect its sewage on its property, and then using a pump station and a force main, discharge that sewage into the terminal end of the gravity sewer on Hamburg Street. As part of that process, our office would be engaged to review the developer's proposed plans to ensure that it's compatible with the town's planned extension along Carmen Road, so that certain infrastructure that would be installed as part of that project would be capitalized as a betterment to the sewer district number 2 extension, and I'll explain that a little bit in more detail as we get to it. To ensure that the system would function as intended, there was a restriction placed on the Western Pines discharge into the system, where they have to use flow equalization to keep their discharge down to a peak of 64 gallons per minute. So proposed sewer district extension number 2 is along Carmen Road. The intent is to use a gravity sewer system that starts at the Schenectady County, Albany County line, or the Town of Gilliland, Town of Rotterdam town line, and run by gravity north along Carmen Road to the approximate location of the roundabout. At that location, we would introduce another pump station on one of the properties. I believe it has a hotel and a bank on it at this time. And we would include a pump station that would be similar to the pump station on 4th Street, as that is becoming the town's new standard for pump stations in its utility building. We would place the pump station near the approximate right-of-way, and that pump station would connect to the force main that would be installed by the Western Pines developer, and that's where we would hope to realize the benefit of that connection. This is a map that identifies conceptually the area that would be serviced by the proposed extension. All the properties that are highlighted in a pink color would be the tax parcels that would be included in a proposed extension number 2. And there's a concept that's been developed for the sewer infrastructure that would support that project. So to expand on that a little bit further, we've advanced some additional analysis of concept level design of the gravity sewer system that would start again near the interchange with the off-ramp of the thruway and basically head north on Carmen Road. And we validated that we can install a gravity sewer system within the right-of-way, but outside of the pavement limits of Carmen Road. The goal is to try to keep the sewer out of the pavement to keep the cost down. To support that placement, some of the properties along the corridor, we will need to secure permanent easements for the installation and then the maintenance of that sanitary sewer. And we believe that as part of the project, those easements would be granted in exchange for service connections. As those properties benefit from the improvement, adding costs for buying easements would just increase the amount they would have to pay being part of the district. So we expect those to be voluntarily conveyed easements to support the project as it moves forward. And it would only move forward upon board approval and support of those parties within the district. Just a few more slides that show the concept design was developed so we could best understand what the project cost would be, so we would be able to provide a very reasonable basis for the bonding needed for supporting this project as it moves forward. Again, this is the corner lot. We did include a section of sewer, and I'm going to just come around briefly. I'll try to project a little bit more. This is the corner lot. This would be the southeast corner of Carmen, and then this is Curry. There's the hotel, the bank, and the restaurant. The idea would be is to traverse that property. The reason we're traversing the property to the pump station location is as part of a study that we did for the town to look at additional extensions. There's the opportunity to extend a gravity sewer from this point here on Curry Road and go east to the thruway ramp. So we've designed this conceptually to be deep enough to extend that and pick up the rest of the properties on that part of Curry Road east.
Talking towards the Stardust Hotel?
Yes. So we believe that one of the advantages that this project will include, just like Sewer District 7, we envisioned having extensions that would help reduce the underlying cost. We believe these extensions will continue. So this would be extension 2, going east on Curry Road would be extension 3, and each time you extend this district, it's going to reduce the overall burden to each individual property owner just through the sheer benefit of reduced value as the project gets larger. Economies of scale will be realized. Just a few more slides that show conceptually how we validated the plan and profile for the conceptual design. And then the force main. Again, I just want to point out the developer for Whispering Pines is supposed to provide a force main that is going to be directionally drilled under the roundabout and tie into the terminal manhole that's on the north side of the roundabout in Hamburg Street. And that section of force main would be capitalized on as a betterment to support this future project where we would just connect at a point approximately a few hundred feet from the intersection in front of the hotel. The estimated cost for this project is $2.18 million. It is envisioned that the town would conventionally finance this initially with bands, bond anticipation notes at a very low rate, and at some point convert them to a longer term bond. For the purpose of the analysis, we just looked at a long-term bond and a related rate. There are also opportunities to seek funding through EFC where rates may be better for long-term bonds that may be commercially available. So this project, if approved, would also be included in the IUP or EFC's priority listing projects to see if they would be eligible for funding. The cost would be based upon the project and retired using the town's current retirement strategy for debt. It includes basically 3 components: a cost to reduce the debt, a cost for operation and maintenance, and then a cost for treatment at the City of Schenectady's wastewater treatment facility. So in general, the town's EDU formula is based upon our benefit methodology is based upon 1 single-family home being equivalent to 1 equivalent dwelling unit, and multiple family residential units or apartments is 1 ED unit per dwelling unit or per apartment. And the commercial properties and industrial or non-residential properties, 1 EDU is based upon 75,000 gallons of annual water consumption. So the concept is that you're correlating the average annual consumption of water for a single-family home to that of a commercial property. As part of the project, we identified all the individual parcels that would be included in this district, and as part of that, we identified the number of EDUs that would be assigned to those parcels based upon their building, their property use, and we have come up with a total of just over 300 equivalent dwelling units within this proposed district. And what you can see is the properties that theoretically benefit more from the improvement, multifamily properties, have more benefits assigned to them than a typical single-family home parcel, which would have one EDU. So based upon an estimated project cost of $2.18 million, we looked at a 30-year loan at 3.5% interest rate, which is a commercially available rate. So the annual principal and interest payment would be a little over $188,000 per year, divided by the 329 EDUs that would be projected in the district, and that equates to about $361 per EDU. Because this is an extension from the original sewer district number 7, there's a debt retirement component that's associated with reducing the debt of that underlying district. So that is calculated to be an additional $199 per EDU. So the debt retirement contributions that this would have would be $560 per EDU annually. So the additional costs that come into play is when service is actually provided. So as outlined earlier, there's an operation and maintenance cost. We estimated that to be about $42 per EDU. And then there's a cost for treating the waste at the Schenectady County Wastewater Treatment Plant, and that has an annual fee of $248 per user or per EDU. So when you add all this up, the annual user cost per EDU is $850. And I just want to point out that the New York State Comptroller's threshold that requires Comptroller's approval of the rate is $845. So this is $5 more than the threshold that would therefore requiring Comptroller's approval. As the project is refined in its next iteration, if there's a way to find some cost savings to get this down below the Comptroller's threshold, we will endeavor to do that, so that'll avoid one step in the process for the town. I see a lot of heads nodding.
Yeah.
We think it's achievable just through some refinement of the design, and as the project advances, we will continue to look for ways to do that. We've been very sensitive to the cost for the project, and that's why we are looking for placing the sewer outside of the pavement limits, because that will drive up the cost. But that does require some permanent easements from the property owners. We believe that they would be voluntarily offered because this will directly benefit their individual property by having access to public sewer at a very reasonable rate. This equates to about $70 a month. Next steps, there would be a formal public hearing presenting the map plan report. Once we've received comments, incorporated any comments, and then refined the map plan report. Once the formal public hearing is completed, and if there would be a secret determination, a district formation, a 30-day permissive referendum, and if we get the number down below the 845, no comptroller approval after the 30-day permissive referendum, the board would be in a position to secure funding and then advance the project through its entitlement phase and then construction. And that's the brief overview of the project, and we would be more than happy to answer any comments that may be raised by either the board or members of the audience. And please excuse me, I forgot to mention right up front, I have two individuals from Mike and Zach that are here, so if there are hard questions, they're going to answer them.
Joe?
Yes.
A couple questions.
Sure.
The $2.1 million investment, is it fair to say that investment is strictly for items that benefit the town's current needs and its future needs versus the money that the developers own? So I believe the developers is contributing $3 or $4 million towards this as well.
Their contribution would be that the infrastructure that they're going to install that we're going to reclaim as part of this project.
Right.
So that's, if that wasn't there, this project would cost more. Yes.
Right. So, secondly, you have not, and again back to your cost savings analysis, you have not included the EDUs from either that developer's project or any path he crosses until he hits Carmen Road, correct?
So let me. So in the analysis for the EDUs, and we talked about this briefly, and make sure I don't pass it. what we did for the calculation of EDUs, okay, there it is. So as part of the calculation, we have the debt retirement piece for the construction, which is the 361, and then we have the cost that's associated with the underlying Hamburg Street Sewer District, which is the 199. How that comes into play is we take the total principal and interest that's related to the underlying district, sewer district number 7, and divide that by the total number of EDUs of the sewer district number 7, plus the EDUs that would be created as part of extension 1, Whispering Pines, plus the EDUs that would be developed as part of extension number 2. So that underlying debt for the primary infrastructure, which is brand new basically, is being proportionally distributed fairly and evenly across the initial district and all of its extensions.
So it's fair to say that the cost for the EDUs right now, EDU cost on Hamburg Street at some point is going to come down. I don't want to say substantially, but it's going to come down.
Exactly. There's just the fact that we're reducing. So the way to look at this is between extension 1 and extension 2, additional properties are helping reduce the debt retirement by $199. So the debt in the underlying 7, sewer district 7, is going to go down that $199 because that's being more evenly distributed over the larger area. And then as these properties are developed, one of the things that became very apparent, when you look at the properties that are involved, and this is a good image to show, a lot of the parcels that are paying a good portion of the cost have apartment complexes on them. Those properties have a large piece of land being covered by on-site septic systems. Once there's no longer a need to use all that land for an on-site septic system, they would be in a position to look at expanding those facilities. As they expand those facilities with higher density, another apartment building, for example, that would increase the number of benefit units, and then again result in a reduction in the cost per benefit unit to everybody in the district and its extensions. There's also a couple of properties that are undeveloped or significantly undeveloped that would have more significant development potential if they were to be enhanced beyond their current use.
So one of the things that, this is a one-off question, so but we're at 890 is there. Do you know if there are any sleeves there that we can continue underneath without having a bore? Is it something that you looked at yet or fired about?
We haven't, as far as
sleeves underneath that 890. So in this section here, if we wanted to get to the other side, really, I'll say the Gutland side. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Go that way.
If there was the ability
to. I know
to.
some of that when they built the highways, so some areas they have sleeves. Some don't. I mean, it's just what they.
We're not aware of any, because we did survey that intersection, and there was so we did as part of the survey that we wanted to understand what was there. We did a subsurface utility engineering survey, so it's identifying where all the existing underground utilities are. We didn't identify any sleeves in that specific location.
Okay, just curious.
Questions back here?
Yes.
Are all parcels required to participate in this?
So all of the parcels that would be in the proposed district would be included in the district because there's going to be a benefit realized by having the infrastructure available. Not all parcels would have to immediately connect to the sewer, but it would be envisioned that within a year or two that they would.
And what's your timeline? When do you think this will take place?
So the way the process would develop is there'd be some additional refinement of the information for the sewer system, and then a formal map plan report with all the refinements would be presented to the town board with a secret documentation. The town board would then schedule a public hearing, and as part of the public hearing, all the same property owners would be invited to participate in another presentation. The final presentation would include the final numbers, the final debt retirement costs, and any additional information that's needed to support the moving the project forward, like a better definition of where easements are needed and such. And once the public hearing is completed, the town board would then have to decide if they want to move forward with the district formation or not. If they do decide to move forward, they would act on seeker, act on the district formation, and there would be a 30-day permissive referendum. So this process could take 2 to 3 months to get to that point. And then upon the 30-day permissive referendum, then the town would be able to move forward with borrowing the money to support the design and the construction of the system. And it would probably take several months to finalize all the designs and get the approvals that are needed from the DEC and the DOT, and the project could be positioned so it could go out to bid in the winter and be a 2020 construction start. And then it would take about a year for that construction to occur.
Joe, just a couple questions. The 2.18 million is today's dollars.
Today's dollars.
What kind of contingencies? Contingencies in that number.
I think we had a 20%.
We have 20% contingency on the construction.
So the thought again is, given the current bidding climate, you guys are covered.
Yeah, yep, yep.
On the O&M side, is that equally distributed between all these sewer districts and extensions?
Yes.
And that number was in the 40s?
Yep. Yep. It's the same annual number, and it was divided by, it was like $42 per unit.
But it's a total, I mean, with everything, with the treatment, it's a total of about $300.
Well, the city of Schenectady, yeah, the city of Schenectady charges like $240 or something like that.
There's an actual O&M number that you.
Yeah, there's an O&M number.
O&M, $42 annually. $248 is the annualized cost per EDU.
Yeah,
to the city of Schenectady.
Yeah. So the city of Schenectady is going to charge $248 per customer.
So that's a treatment cost.
That's the treatment cost.
The O&M cost of that district is about $42.
$42. Yep. Which is actually a pretty good number.
Very reasonable.
Does the city lock that number in, that 248?
That's their current number, yes.
Now, it's my understanding on that, isn't there an I&I issue relative to us transmitting or conveying sewage? And it's the 3-to-1 formula?
Yeah.
You're gonna remove 3 gallons of I&I for every gallon that we're putting into that system, correct?
There's like some type of intermunicipal agreement that I believe the town already has with the city to accept additional flow, and I believe that's already been approved for up to 500 gallons per minute with the original district formation. So with the original district formation, we're discharging into a 12-inch sewer on the city of Schenectady side. So we've limited the force main capacity to 500 gallons per minute, so that way there's still reserve capacity on the north side of the railroad tracks to potentially tie into that same sewer by gravity, or a low pressure grinder pump system on that side. So as part of some of the work we've been commissioned to do, we've advanced feasibility studies for additional extensions. Once this project started, the Hamburg Street Corridor project has a long history. They've been trying to figure out a way to get sewers for over 65 years in that corridor. So once there was an avenue for that to happen, it's still a lot of interest. And the town receives a lot of inquiries about how do other properties get connected into the system. So we did a study and looked at the northern end of Hamburg Street between the railroad tracks and the city of Schenectady line. And we came up with a strategy that could work there using a low pressure grinder pump system to pick those properties up and tie in. And then we looked at an extension on Curry Road East, which would be a gravity extension that would tie into this project. And then we also looked at a corridor of Curry Road West from the roundabout to Fort Hunter. And that concept envisions a gravity sewer that kind of goes to the middle, and then it would go across, and I forget the name of the...
Holly Manor.
Holly Manor, go to the backside of Holly Manor, put a pump station in there, and then the town has an easement across the church property, St. Gabriel's, and we would put another force main that would go across the St. Gabriel's property, and as part of the Hamburg Street project, we put a stub in a manhole to pick up a future connection for that system. So we've kind of envisioned those 3 areas and then other area to capture that whole part of the town and utilize the capacity in the city's system just there on just north of my friend's lumber.
Can you explain why Fasula Boulevard was left out? Did the property owners there not want to connect as part of the original district formation? Why was that left out in the Hamburg Street property?
It was originally, I can answer that a little bit. So originally, if you all recall, when we got into office, this project was already moving. We had to if you will, redo, I'll say it like that, the district from the perspective of the costs and some of the engineering, some of the things that were not to the liking of the, I forget if it was the Attorney General and or the State Comptroller's Office, to my recollection. We had something with public hearing, something happened where we...
Oh, you had a second public hearing.
We had a second public hearing. So, but we had to redo it. That was never included. They were never part of the district. So we didn't change that footprint because then it would have created another set of circumstances for the town.
So I guess given that, my question would be is given all the other stuff that you're doing now, would it be advantageous to ask people at Fasula if they want to connect?
And they can ask the town. So for example, we have laterals in different sections all along in some of the side streets there. So if those residents want to connect, they can petition the town and ask for the potential to connect. You know, our focus, and I'll say it like this: my focus for the town in these corridors is to tie in as many parcels as property along the main highways, and do that. And when it comes to Holly Manor, about a dozen years ago or so, there was the potential for Hamburg Street sewer because DOT or someone was talking about making improvements to that corridor. And we had at that time ventured out to work with the diocese to ask for an easement across that property and to tie in Holly Manor, because Holly Manor has had issues with their systems.
And maybe just to add, as part of this project, because I'm not sure exactly what property you're talking about, but as part of this project...
He's talking about this right here, Joe. This is
this
is Fasula Boulevard right here. You guys colored the cemetery here, but obviously that's not, you know...
It's in the district, but it has no benefit.
But it's here, right?
Yeah.
You have a they did put a lateral in there, to my knowledge.
There's a stub for an 8-inch.
There's a stub. So on every intersecting street, we actually to facilitate future extensions, we have a sewer line, a sewer main, and a manhole extension on every side street to facilitate future extensions. One of the things our grant writers worked on for us to look at, you know, to provide some guidance for the future plan for the town, we believe some of these areas immediately adjacent to this Hamburg Street corridor, if there was a neighborhood-specific income survey done, may be eligible for CDG grant money as well to facilitate extending those sewers into those neighborhoods. And the placement of the pump station was done in such a way that if we were able to get more neighborhoods added, we could add flow equalization at that pump station, still keep the flow down to 500 gallons per minute, but be able to manage more neighborhoods and with CDG money.
One other last question. As part of all this sewer work that you guys are doing, do they update their models use ordinance, the DEC one, the model use one, to make sure, again, from an I&I standpoint, that the town enforces, so we don't get into the situation where we're doing a 3-to-1 on I&I?
Yeah, as far as the town, we haven't been commissioned to do any updates to the town's ordinances, but we would be more than qualified to do that if they wanted to.
Steve, do you know how old that is, off the top of your head, your model sewer use ordinance?
Not off the top of my head, no.
That would be a good time to do it.
Yeah, you know, one of the benefits of this is it's new infrastructure, you know, and I think, you know, wherever there's opportunities to try to expand into some of these adjoining neighborhoods, I think we should really look at capitalizing on that. Having been a lifelong resident myself, I've seen things change over the years, and a lot of homes, like even in the Highbridge area, being very familiar with a lot of development over there, they were built with foundations without foundation drainage. They have municipal water but on-site septic systems, and through the lack of conservation, more water is going in the ground than is coming out or being recycled, you know, through natural conventions. And groundwater elevations have risen over the years, and now many of those homes have problems with foundation drainage that they never had before. So there's always opportunities to do better as we learn more and we learn from things that have happened in the past.
It's up to you. She says it was, Sam said it was updated before 2015.
2015? Okay.
That would be a good time to do it because you don't know what's going on.
Yep. Any other questions? Good work. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, you too. Thanks. Thanks very much. Yeah, give it to me. I'll do it. Yeah, excellent. So, we have to, just a motion, because we did have a discussion during executive session, which did not appear on our agenda tonight with Ms. Bywater. So, motion 5.19. Therefore, upon motion of Council Member A, seconded by Council Member B, if you will, we'll do that in a moment. Be it resolved by the Town Board as follows. Section 1, the Town Board of the Town of Rotterdam hereby amends the May 2019 motion to enter executive session to invite Angelica Bywater, Esquire, Labor Relations Specialist for CSEA, and the grievance to discuss employee grievance number 111-42018 and collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law.
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion to amend the motion as read.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Christou for motion 519. Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ms. Miller Herrera. Anyone on the question? Okay, Ms. Mark, would you call the roll for motion 5.19? We'll get that printed for you.
Mr. Christou?
Yes.
Mr. Guidarelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Signor?
Yes.
Mr. Thomason?
Yes. Okay, motion 5.19 passes. Thank you very much. And
Mr. Supervisor, I move to adjourn.
of course you do. I just like to say that too. So we have a motion by Mr. Christou and a second by Mr. Guidarelli to adjourn. Anyone, let's third the motion then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Our meeting is adjourned.